Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.
Good evening. This is the August 22nd Bennington Select Board meeting. We're happy to see you all here tonight. My name is Jeannie Jenkins and I chair this board, and I'm going to ask my fellow board members to introduce themselves, starting with Gary.
Hi, I'm Gary Corey. Welcome.
Hi, Tom Haley. Good to see everybody.
Good evening, I'm Jim Carroll.
Hi, I'm Jean Connor.
Good evening, Sarah Perrin.
And hello, I'm Bruce Lee Clark.
And I'm going to explain that Jean is in the corner because
I was naughty.
not because she was naughty, but because she went to an affair recently that had a lot of people at it, and she's just being very cautious for all of us, okay? So that's why she's in the corner. All right. And also with us tonight is Stu Hurd, our town manager, Nancy Lively, who takes great minutes always, and Jim Vyers, Cat TV, on the camera. Thank you very much, all of you. So we'll start as we always do with the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you, Jim. Jean will read the vision, or the town's vision statement that guides all of our work.
Bennington is a welcoming, engaged, inclusive, resilient community where everyone, regardless of identity, shares in our vitality and benefits from an outstanding quality of life.
Thank you very much. All right, next up is the consent agenda. For the purpose of discussion, could I have a motion to accept the consent agenda?
So move.
Thank you. A second? Thank you, Gary. All right, any discussion? Thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing none, all those in favor of the consent agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please say no. We also have minutes, actually. We also have minutes from, no, we don't.
No.
Oh, never mind. Yes, we do. That's
No.
coming. That's coming. Never mind. That was it. All right. All right. So next up is public comment. Has everyone signed up that wishes to speak this evening? Yes? All right. So a reminder that the purpose of public comment is for the board and the public to hear the public's comments. It's not a time for discussion. Please try and keep your comments to no more than 3 minutes. And if you do have questions, we want those to be answered. Please let us know after the meeting, or just call the town office directly so that you can speak with the staff person who is most knowledgeable about your question. All right, so it looks like we have several people signed up. First, Clark Adams on Get Out the Vote.
Good evening. Again, Clark Adams, Bennington, Vermont. As I hope we're all aware, there's a couple of elections coming up that are very important. And I haven't really seen any action or evidence on the part of the community or the town government to strongly encourage people to participate, as we've spoken about in the past, what I consider to be an abysmal participation rate of our electorate. I would really hope that the town board and elements of the town government truly make a vigorous effort to not only educate the public, but encourage the public to get involved by the voting process.
Thank you, Clark. I do want to say, I do believe that our town clerk sends a sample ballot to our local paper each election, and encourages them to print it and also to publicize. So that's another pressure point you might want to pursue.
We will also, this coming election, we will all be receiving an absentee ballot.
Yes, we will be. Yes.
Everybody who is a registered voter. However, if you're not registered, you need to register.
All right, next up, Jenny Dewar to speak on the BBC. How did you know?
Hi, I'm Jenny. I'm the Executive Director of the Better Bennington Corporation. I live in Pownell. Hello, Select Board. I just want to thank those of you who've been coming regularly to Thursday Night Lives. It's really great to see so much representation from this board. I appreciate that. Coming up this Thursday, we have Christian Montgomery and the Winter Kill Band with Kark Kamolo. I'm calling that, not officially, but I'm calling it Country on Crack. So it's country, but it's so much more. So that should be really fun. The splash pad will be left on for this one since it's going to be really fun and ruckus, and it's not supposed to, you know what I'm saying, I'm not going to say it out loud. So the weather report looks good. The following week is going to be a really neat one, Tendai Muparitsa with a marimba and some guests. He's a world-class musician, so that should be really fun. I hope people will come. I also want to let you all know that Alex Torres will be here this Saturday at 4 o'clock at the splash pad. That's going to be a Latin celebration, so come eat some good food, dance to some good music. Harvest Fest has been changed. Thank you to your acceptance of the date change. That's going to be on October 15th. Please tell your friends. It's on the same level of as Mayfest. It has the same footprint plus more. We're also taking Pleasant Street and the park, so it really should be fun. Lots of activities. We're planning so many things for all ages. Kids from age 0 to 100 is how I'm describing it. And then Thursday Night Live was scheduled to end on September 22nd, but because we were rained out so horrifically with the DJ splashy dance party, I've added him on for September 29th, so there's just going to be a big old dance party with Malcolm Payne as the DJ, and it should be really fun. I also want to thank Fidium Fiber, since they're here tonight, for sponsoring so many of our events this summer. So we really appreciate that, and I hope you listen carefully to their presentation. So, any questions about stuff coming up?
Oh, goodness, Gina.
I don't have a question. I just want to encourage people to bring their camp chairs. I've noticed some people, they must assume that there's seating, and you're certainly welcome to sit on the ground, but it's much more comfortable if you were to bring a camp chair.
Bring a chair. It started happening organically, and the people who do bring their chairs, I think they're more comfortable than those of us that are sitting on the ground or prancing around. But you can also dance in the splash pad, so. But yeah, bring a chair. Okay. Any others? Cool. Thank you.
Thank you. Ned Perkins to speak on People's Park.
Yeah, Ned Perkins, Bennington. I'm concerned about People's Park, the head of the Willow Parkway across the parking lot by the train station. And you know, I know that part of Garlic Fest is going to be scheduled for there over Labor Day. But right now, when I go by it, it's not a place where I feel safe. It's not a place where I would take my kids, you know, for a picnic. And I think, you know, you probably are aware the police will tell you there's been a lot of overdoses there, assaults, thefts. And there's a large sign in front of the park, and it says, "Park closed at dusk." So, you know, it appears to me, I don't know, I don't come down there at night, but it appears that there are people camped out there, and I'm wondering if the sign means what it says, and if the town is enforcing that, and if the select board stands behind that.
Stu, I don't know if you want to respond.
It is unfortunate, but they are not camping on the town property. They're beyond the limits of town property.
They're not what?
They are beyond the limits of town property where they camp out. We do patrol the area, especially in the evening hours, but they are actually not on town property.
So what property is that?
It belongs to our adjoining neighbor.
To what?
It belongs to our adjoining neighbor.
So it's legal to camp anywhere in town overnight? Is that right?
I don't know that there is an
I
answer.
mean, we have
easy
housing,
answer.
you know, I look at the housing ordinances that say you have to, you know, have a bathroom and a kitchen and all this for proper housing. This is, you know, camping out, that's not proper housing.
So Ned, it might be better to have conversation in private, because this is it's private property that we're talking about. So rather than having that conversation.
I go by there
public
all the
about-
time on the park, and there's a lot of unsavory characters hanging out there.
Well, I mean, it's a park, and so people are allowed to be in the park. I
Right.
think the question about
But if
after
they're there
hours
after dusk,
is a little different.
can they be, can a no trespass order be issued to somebody who's found there after dusk?
Well, the property owner.
No, but if
would
they're
need to say
if they're on the town park property.
Again, I think your concern is noted, and I think
Yeah.
it is not the first time it's been brought up. And so I appreciate that. I think having more of a conversation is probably better to do with Stu, you know, in private.
Okay. I just, you know, I think we talk a lot about treatment, but, you know, enforcement of the laws that we have is the other part of the, you know,
Yeah.
the issue.
Yeah.
Just,
Yep, Sarah, and then Jean.
I think this might be something we should add to an agenda item in the future, because I know a lot of people are having this discussion in the community as well.
Maybe what we can do is the next time the police give their presentation here, that can be one of the items that they address and talk about what they can and cannot do.
Private property versus town
Yeah,
property.
Yeah, that's a good.
just so you know, I mean, the whole town has had it with all the car break-ins, and you know what I mean? You can't leave your car overnight anywhere in town. You know this. It's bad.
All right, Jean, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, in relation to Garlic Town, I think, if I'm not mistaken, this will be the third year that they've used that site. And as far as I know, Garlic Town, that has not been a problem with that particular event being held in that spot.
And I'm going to say Matt is up next, so he can speak to Garlic Town. Again, it was a complicated decision to move to a new location. Matt Harrington, you're up for Garlic
Great.
Town.
Thank you. And I've had a lot of great lead-ins tonight, so.
You do.
Thank you for having me here. I'm Matt Harrington, the Executive Director of the Southwestern Vermont Chamber of Commerce. We produce what has become known as Garlic Fest over the years for the last, at this point, 28 years. But we've changed it with COVID and moving it downtown just to give it a different flavor, and called it Garlic Town USA. Hopefully everybody has heard about it. We're less than 2 weeks out, so it is Saturday, September 3rd from 10 to 5. Clove A, what we call our two locations. Clove A is Greenberg Lot at 321 Main Street, so right behind the Putnam development. Clove B is at the Bennington station and that park at 120 Depot Street. We are going to utilize the Tuttle lot at 113 Depot, which will be more of a ticket sales, merchandise, and volunteer headquarters. So a lot of lessons we learned from last year, spread it out, give people options, that sort of thing. We've also grown our vendor list. We'll have 125 plus vendors serving garlic, craft, art, spirits, food, and produce and product. Those will be scattered throughout the Clove, so figure about 60 to 70 vendors per Clove. We'll have 20 plus food and dessert vendors and carts. We learned last year there wasn't enough lunch. We also had 8 food vendors drop out in 48 hours before the event, so we're really hoping we have a lot more food this year and a lot more choices. Live performances all day long, including Bubbaloo Tugget at 10, Bennington Traditional Jazz Band at 11, Moose Crossing at 12, the Julie Shea Band at 1, Whiskey City at 2:30, and Beard and Glass Glasses closes out the night at 3:30. They will be in alternating stages. So we're going to have a stage in Clove A, a stage in Clove B, and if you go to the website, you'll be able to see what times and what locations. So we're really trying to get people to move back and forth between Depot and Washington. Parking will be encouraged on the outskirts of town, like last year, for many of our travelers, including Ocean State Job Lot, Grace Christian School, and the Chamber State Building as well. Green Mountain Express will have a fleet of 6 buses this year. That's a double from last year to bring people throughout downtown. So they'll be bringing people from Ocean State Job Lot, Grace Christian, the State Building down to Depot Street and Main Street. We'll also have the tractor hay rides as we had last year too. Tickets can be purchased ahead of time at garlictownusa.com. We will also be providing the ability to do credit card purchases and cash options this year. So that's why we really kind of settled on Tuttle Lot being a main ticket location. We'll have demonstration tents for kids' activities throughout the day, and one thing we've always tried to work on, we've never really been able to do, but this year we're going to welcome local chef Kara Thatch, who will be hosting cooking demonstrations throughout the day as well. We're encouraging chamber members and specifically our downtown merchants to have sidewalk sales all day long, which many of you may remember from last year, and that our restaurants are fully stocked to serve patrons. As I finish up, I just want to thank many of our Circle sponsors. One of the things we did this year was really try and make sponsorship affordable. So many of our small businesses have been able to participate, but our 2 premier sponsors this year, I have to give a shout out to Coggins Auto Group and the Bank of Bennington, who gave more than enough, and so we really appreciate them. As you know, this award-winning festival and event requires a lot of community support, and one way residents can help is by volunteering. We're always in need of volunteers. It takes about 125 plus volunteers. Some of them are in this room. I'm looking at them now. You know how it goes. If we don't have enough volunteers, you're all going to have to work like 12-hour shifts. So we'd really like a lot more volunteers. You get free cool tie-dyed shirt. We do a kickoff party at Ramonto's, and of course, you get to meet great friends. So if you do want to become a volunteer, please head on over to garlictownusa.com and go there. And if you have any questions, I'm available. So
That's great. Thank you. Any questions for Matt right now?
great.
Thanks, Matt. This
Thanks.
is great. I unfortunately won't be able to be there, but I'm really excited to be sending my uncle
You're
as
there
a
in
grower
spirit.
this year.
You're there
my
in
uncle's
spirit.
there as a grower, so
Good.
I'm really excited.
Good. Great.
Thanks.
Thanks, everybody.
That's very good.
Now I have to go back to a captain's meeting, so I left the captain's
Okay, I think you
meeting.
have one quick question. Clark, did you have a question?
Yeah.
Well, it's a tie-in to my opening statement. There needs ways to different opportunities we're hearing about whenever there's an event, or the town has a voter registration booth there. Some things would encourage people who aren't registered to vote and just raise public awareness that there is an election coming up.
Yep. We'd support that, and if I didn't point it out, we are closing Depot Street. We are leaving GBICS open until noon. When they're finished, then we're closing all of Depot Street, and then we'll close up to Washington Avenue. So, we'll kind of manage the pavement parts of it, but we do have room there as well. So.
And Clark, I think as a board, let's individually think about ways that might help raise awareness of the next election. Yes, yes.
Great.
All right.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Matt. All right. So we're moving on to our next agenda item, which is a presentation by Fidium Fiber.
Can I quickly?
Sure, yes, okay.
Less than a minute?
Yes, less than a minute, yes, go for it.
I'll talk really fast.
Well, introduce yourself.
I'm Jennifer Jasper, Executive Director for Bennington Performing Arts Center, the home of Old Castle Theater Company. Old Castle's 50th season's third production, Sheepdog, by Kevin Artigue and directed by local director Kirk Jackson, opens this Friday, August 26th, and runs through September 4th. Sheepdog examines big questions about race and policing through an intensely human lens. To coincide with this staging, BPAC and Oldcastle is hosting 2 community conversations after performances of the play on August 28th and September 1st. Anyone who has attended any performance of Sheepdog is welcome to come to these conversations beginning after the show ends at 9 p.m. With these discussions, we hope to inspire deep consideration of the play's challenging subject matter and to find connections between the questions the play raises and the community here in Bennington as it examines some of the same issues. Pay What You Will nights are Wednesday, August 31st and Thursday, September 1st, and other performances are $25 general admission and $35 for premium reserve seating. Bennington Community Theater kicks off its new works reading series with 3 short one-acts by Jana Lilly and directed by Robert Ebert on Tuesday, August 30th at 7:30. Free admission with a suggested donation at the door. Slideshow, an evening of short plays directed by Jennifer Jasper and H.K. Goldstein, is Bennington Community Theater's fall production opening in October. We're holding auditions for Slideshow, and they're being held this Saturday, August 27th, 9 a.m. to noon, and Monday, August 29th from 7 to 9 p.m. at the theater at 331 Main Street. And finally, on September 24th at 7 p.m., bring the family to see magician and comedian Chris Lingill as part of his Faster Than the Eye tour. Tickets are $20 and general for admission and $10 for kids. Chris's show features intimate close-up magic, mind-blowing mentalism, daring yet comical escapes, and he even gives you the chance to learn a magic trick on your own. So for more information and tickets, go to bpacvt.org or find out everything happening in Bennington Performing Arts Center. Also, a big thank you to everyone who has supported live performance this year, and hope to see you soon. And we will have a table out during Garlic Town, so if you want to find out anything going on at our theater, stop on by. We'll be right next to Clove A.
Thank you very much, and you can indeed speed talk. That was great. Okay. All right, so back to Fidium Fiber, which is next up. Stu, I think you're going to introduce?
Actually, I'm not going to introduce. You're going to have to introduce yourself because I didn't get a chance to get your name and who you are.
No problem at all. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sarah Pelkey. I'm with Consolidated Communications / Fidium Fiber, and I want to start off by saying thank you for having us. It was supposed to be an us. It's a me tonight, and there's a very good reason for that, which is part of this presentation, but thank you for having us. This presentation tonight is extremely brief. I see a lot of familiar faces out there, and I'm sure many of you have seen our Consolidated trucks, Fidium trucks out and about over the last 6 to 8 months. So I'm not here to tell you too much about those trucks, but I'm here to tell you why and how we got here. So this presentation tonight is really in regards to the Southern Vermont CUD's partnership with Consolidated Communications. All right, so I'll talk briefly to the Southern Vermont and CCI grant application process that we have currently been going through, the project in this build by phases, the maps that go along with those phases, and then the Fidium product itself. And then I'll open it up for questions at the end. So through our partnership with Southern Vermont CUD, and for those of you that may or may not know, a CUD is a communication unions district, and Vermont is made up of 9 of those districts, and Southern Vermont as one of those 9. Consolidated has already begun building and has launched fiber into Bennington, Shaftesbury, Pownell, Wilmington, and Westover, and a few other surrounding towns. And we've launched over 14,000 addresses in the last 3 weeks, excuse me. And this build has been a process, and we have finally launched at the end of July, and we've seen really great returns so far. And in addition to those addresses, the CUD and Consolidated have partnered to pursue a grant that is put out, and that grant is the Vcbb construction grant, some of you might have been aware of, to build fiber to the home network to all the underserved residents in this specific CUD. We, as Consolidated Communications and the CUD, are currently finalizing that grant application, and we're hoping, fingers crossed, that everything gets approved by the end of summer. Construction of the fiber network to the remaining parts of Bennington would begin in 2023 and complete that year. So this helps break down the numbers of total passings, and when I say passings, that means a home, right? So you can see here in phase 1, the total passings are 11,485. Total underserved passings are 393, and total served passings thus far. And that project right there is complete. The initial RDOF funding, that portion is also complete, and this is an accumulation of Bennington, Pownell, and Shaftesbury's numbers. The grant that we're currently going for is that VCBB grant, and that would take place in phase 2. So as you can see, that would be a total of about 6,412 addresses. And we're hoping, fingers crossed, everything will be complete by the end of next year. And then phase 2B, the remaining addresses as well, and then the hardest locations. So those hardest locations are the ones that are really far out there, really challenging to get to, whether it's tree lines or weather. Those are the houses that are miles and miles out, but are considered serviceable, and we're trying to come together and figure out a way how to service all of those, even the hardest addresses. So you can see at the bottom the total passings when this project is complete by the end of 2025. This is a 5-year trajectory plan. It would be about 20,000 addresses. This is phase 1, so this is already complete, and you can see here the yellow lines represent that. So a good portion of Bennington is complete, and that is what we've launched over the last 3 weeks. So majority of the service we've been providing now this August has been Bennington, North Bennington residents, and then a select few Pownell and Shaftesbury as well. Phase 2 next year would look like this. So we would be serving that bottom part there, which is Pownell, North Pownell, and then starting to build up through Manchester and Londonderry, as you can see. We zoom in on Pownell because that would be a primary focus, of course. This is the full picture of if everything gets approved and goes through by the end of 2023, like the whole service area of southern Vermont that we would be servicing for the fiber network. So introducing Fidium. Some of you probably are bridging the gap between Consolidated Communications and Fidium Fiber. So we are one and the same. I get this question almost daily. What is the difference between Consolidated and Fidium? We are the same company. I always refer to it as Ford to Mustang, right? So Consolidated is the umbrella company, while Fidium is the Mustang, right? That's our elite fiber product. And all of this money has been spent to lay down all of these fiber lines so that we can service people in the southern Vermont. I think if COVID did anything for us, it really brought to light that a strong broadband connection is no longer a luxury, it's a necessity to all families. So we've created the Fidium Fiber product that was launched in November of 2021, and it has had great reception so far. We spent many months interviewing customers and figuring out what they don't want from their internet provider and really figuring out what they do want. So we've really focused on putting together a brand that folks are happy with and feel like they can call and have a partner. So this here is just a few of our values and our missions with the brand, but then also this is a screenshot of if you were to go to fidiumfiber.com, we have done a ton of work on our addresses. You can actually put in your address and see if your address is serviceable right then and there. If it is, it'll tell you. If it doesn't, it will say as to why. These are some early returns and when we launched the Fidium Fiber brand. So this is some customer feedback through our NPS, and that is that's our reporting that we get officially. So that's our official reporting on how we've done in our install process, our sales process, our customer care process, and this is some of the forums that we've pulled some feedback from. I'll just read a few of them. Fidium Fiber, the service has been amazing and the speeds are glorious. Couldn't be more thrilled. Fidium Fiber, you're on my street. Hurry up so I can tell Comcast. I won't repeat the rest. I love Fidium, super fast internet and no issues. We got Fidium 2 weeks ago. It's phenomenal. One of the most satisfying things I did afterwards was call to cancel Xfinity. That's the feedback we get more often than not. You know, people are typically in a bundle deal and they're paying close to $200, if not more. We're able to provide an affordable option for folks that's not those prices. Our top package is $70 a month. A big part of what I do and what I've really been focused on here in Bennington is figuring out ways to embed ourselves in communities. Every community is so different, right? So what makes Bennington special? And that was very easy to find when I spoke with Miss Jenny and I spoke with Matt Harrington and Shannon and really started working with the community in an impactful way. And so far we have done some partnerships with the Chamber of Commerce as well as Better Bennington, and we have more coming down the pike. So that's the fun part of this job, is just going out into the community and really servicing and impacting them in a fun way. Our next event coming up, we've also been part of the Hemming Cruise-Ins, which I need to mention because the first Hemming Cruise-In we did, we weren't even live yet. Our service wasn't live yet, and I've never been at an event where people were just like flocking to the table and wanting more information. We had, I think, almost 25 pre-sales that night, and it was just awesome to see the reception from the community. But coming down the pike, and Jenny has mentioned it, but we are sponsoring Thursday Night Live, and we're doing our soft official launch that night down at the Splash Pad on September 15th. So we're going to be giving away free ice cream, and we're going to have gift cards to local businesses in Bennington, and just talking to folks and answering questions and being part of that. So that is our presentation. We have our fingers crossed that we get approved for this grant. We've been working really hard with the Southern Vermont CUD in this process and spent many days, weeks, and hours on this grant process to finish off the funding so that we can service the rest of Southern Vermont in the next 3 to 4 years. But I know everyone sees the social media posts and they see us out at events, but they don't see what's behind all of that. So I think it's really important to share the process, and this would not be possible without the Southern Vermont CUD. They have been an intricate player in this, and a huge reason why we're able to provide fiber to over 14,000 homes so far.
Thank you. That was very informative. I'm glad you came. I guess questions from the board. Questions from the board? Jean? Yeah.
I think I know the answer to this, but I'm kind of technologically challenged, so I'm going to ask it, and other people may have the same question. So all that, the last step is connecting a home to the fiber network that's at the pole closest to their house, right?
Correct.
Okay.
It could also mean underground. So depending where the house is located, it could be conduit being run, it could be direct bury, or it could be an aerial build, but those last hardest locations means that the house is either really far out there, probably on a mountain, and we're trying to figure out how we're going to get it there.
Right, but I guess what I'm saying is when people call and they say, yes, I want to participate, that's what they're doing. That is just that last step, is connecting their home, however that happens, to the fiber network.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. Other questions? Yes.
I could just comment that I got hooked up with Fidium last week, and there was a hiccup, but your customer service department was one of the best I've ever worked with. I got off the phone with them with answers to questions I didn't know I had, and it made what could have been a very frustrating situation not quite so painful, and I'm really, really satisfied with the service so far. So
That's great to hear. Thank you for that feedback. And I think enough people now in this room have my email, so that if something wasn't going right with customer service, I think someone could get a hold of me and we could figure that out. We're at that point here.
Great. Questions from the audience? No questions? Great, you've done a really good job. All right, well, thank you so much.
Thank you all for having me.
All right, so next up, we have been inviting community organizations to help us understand efforts and resources around issues of substance misuse and prevention and safety. And tonight we've invited the opioid response team to talk with us. And I'm wondering if maybe the players are changing, but Alex Figueroa, why don't you come up and you can explain to us who's going to be with us tonight.
Hello, everybody. My name is Alex Figueroa. I'm the Assistant Director of Substance Use Disorder Services at United Counseling, serves of Bennington County. And with me, I have Todd Salzfeld, who had presented a couple weeks ago. He is the spoke lead with SVMC Blueprint. And I also have Ralph Bennett with Turning Point Recovery Center. The purpose of this meeting is really to provide updates regarding some initiatives that are currently taking place in partnership with multiple stakeholders in our county. And so a couple things we'll touch on is the opioid response team. What is the opioid response team? Some recent updates. Talk about the community action grant, which Todd will get into, and the specifics around that. And then also Ralph will touch on just some updates from recovery housing, talk about the Gate Street house. John Rogers, who he's been the primary point person with the V4 home. He wasn't able to make it today, but he did give me some talking points that I'm happy to share. But before I get started, I wanted to thank the select board. I wanted to thank all of our community members and partners that work so hard, around the initiatives as we look to kind of tackle substance use disorders within our community. I also want to make a shout out to our key partner at the state level, so the Vermont Department of Health's Division of Substance Use Programs. They have been key in the work of health promotion, prevention, treatment, intervention, recovery, and so thank you to them. So with that, I want to hand it over to Todd, and he can kick us off.
Hi, thank you for giving me a chance to speak again. Again, I'm Todd Salzfeld. I'm with SVMC, and I'm the spoke lead for Bennington Blueprint. I wanted to talk about a couple of resources that have been available to Bennington County over the past few years. The first is called the Community Action Grant. It's about $125,000, well, not about, it's $125,000 per year that we've received over the past several years. It's actually part of a much larger grant called the OD2A grant. And this money comes to us from the Vermont Department of Health. We're very thankful to get that. Bennington was one of 3 counties that was targeted based on OD rates and non-fatal and non-fatal OD rates. And it has an interesting grant cycle. They call it the grant year, but it actually is we'll be entering the new grant year on September 1st. And that runs through August 31st. So we just wanted to explain some of the initiatives that we'll be launching this grant year. Some of them are new,
This is really based on a needs assessment that we conduct, and some of them are actually just continuing initiatives that we just found successful and just want to just kind of keep the momentum going. I'll first by talking a little bit about the old initiatives that we're doing, and some of these actually take place with some of our partners. We have a representative from Turning Point here, and the first is called Outreach to Overdose. And what happens with this initiative is whenever EMS or the police department receive an overdose call, a non-fatal overdose call, they actually page a Turning Point peer recovery coach who travels to the scene of that overdose with and the ultimate objective is to hopefully get that person to go to the emergency department for aftercare, because the chances of a fatal OD after a non-fatal OD jump significantly. If the person is not willing to do that, they then receive follow-up contact from Turning Point representative the day afterwards to try to navigate that person to treatment. We'll be continuing that partnership. We're very happy. Turning Point's done a great job. They also do a phenomenal job at the scenes of these overdoses of providing harm reduction bags, but also doing a great job of educating family members, bystanders, friends about what the treatment options are. So even if the person in that moment might not be receptive to being navigated to treatment, Turning Point does a great job of kind of planting that seed. Second initiative that we're going to continue is a program called Messages for Me. This is it's basically a app platform where people can sign up, and 3 times a week they receive like an inspirational message or some sort of instructive message, but it's really just a way for us to kind of check in on people who sign up for this. So you don't necessarily have to have a substance use disorder. This can also be for people who may have a person with a substance use disorder in the family. But we have content writers who are people with both lived experience and also medical professionals who write the content for these messages. Like I said, they go out 3 times a week, and it's just kind of a way to kind of let people know we're checking in on them and that there's someone there who cares for them. A new initiative last year, but we'll continue it this year. We do this in partnership with Bennington Rescue Squad. We call this Advanced CPR. What we found is with fentanyl overdoses, people are requiring more and more Narcan in some situations in order to bring them around. So there's times where people may require like 3 doses of Narcan to actually restore breathing, and that can be a significant amount of time for a person to be down without any respirations. There can be some pretty adverse outcomes if you basically aren't breathing for 30 minutes. And especially in some of our rural areas where EMS might not be able to get there right away, Bennington Rescue is training people in what's called advanced CPR. So they basically train them in the usual aspects of CPR, but they also teach people how to use what's called a bag valve mask. I'm sure you've seen it. It's basically a bag that goes over, allows a person to essentially breathe for the person with this bag. Once the person completes this training with Bennington Rescue, they receive a harm reduction bag, and they also receive the BVM, the bag valve mask. This is targeted towards people who may have someone in their family who is very likely to overdose, and they could be in the presence of that person. And it's also targeted towards agencies, locations that very well may come across a person who has experienced an overdose. Working a little bit right now with Green Mountain Express, because they're with some of their bus drivers, there have been situations where they may have needed to intervene, so we want to make sure if anything like this happens in the future, they will be prepared for this. So we'll be continuing this initiative moving forward. As far as new initiatives go, we are going to launch what we're calling, it's a medication safety program, and this is going to be targeted towards adolescents, where we're going to be hopefully working with providers who work with kids, potentially orthopedics, dentists, and in some cases pediatricians. And if they happen to be prescribing any sort of a controlled substance to a youth, in that office, the family will receive basically a medication safety bag. You really got to be tough to get into these bags. I mean, you can't saw through them, you can't cut through them. They have a combination lock. The whole idea is to keep the medication safe in this bag, because one of the biggest concerns is medication diversion. And one of the targets of the outreach of the Community Action Grant is overdose prevention. So this is one of our initiatives for that. We'll also be hiring what we're calling a treatment navigator, and this will be a person who will work closely with police department, EMS, our emergency department, and this person Well, Turning Point does an absolutely phenomenal job of responding to overdoses. There are a lot of emergency situations that are substance use disorder related, but aren't necessarily an overdose. This person will hopefully work in some of those situations where they experience a person, they come across someone who has a substance use disorder, and the idea is this person will be referred to the treatment navigator, who will then more or less refer them to just be able to educate them on all the different treatment options that are out there. So. Just a quick overview of what we'll be launching in September. Obviously, we have to pass this all through the Vermont Department of Health on the 15th, but they're a great partner, and I don't really foresee any issues in us getting approval for these initiatives. We also have the Opioid Response Team, which is a collection of partners throughout Bennington County. For the most part, not-for-profits, but we definitely have some invested community members. There's the larger opioid response team, but within this opioid response team, we have subcommittees. That's just what I want to talk a little bit about now. We have a youth subcommittee, which the target of this group is obviously working with youth. Past initiatives have included a mini grant program where we've given startup youth programs, some seed money to either expand current programming or develop new programming. We're looking, hopefully, that'll be something that we continue in the future. We have a behavioral health subcommittee, and this one is probably of all, probably the priority. I'm sure maybe most folks may or may not be aware that there is a extremely big shortage of behavioral health clinicians in Bennington County. It's the waiting list to sometimes get a clinician it can be pretty extensive. UCS does a phenomenal job of addressing this, but they're just one agency and they do a great job, but there's still the need even overwhelms UCS in some regards. So what we want to do is we want to find a way to bring this behavioral health talent into Bennington and get them potentially to stay here. So we're looking at possibly making relationships with some colleges to potentially send their interns here where they can actually train in what we're kind of gearing almost like a rural behavioral health experience, where they could potentially, spend some time in the hospital with UCS, potentially the Vermont Department of Health, and get a real feeling of what it's like to provide services in rural Vermont. And hopefully, once they're done with that, they would want to stay here. So that's kind of what we focus on. And then we also have a housing subcommittee, which obviously focuses on recovery housing, which probably Ralph will be speaking to a little bit more. So I went through that really quick.
Can you speak to who the "we" is that is doing all these initiatives?
Yes. So. The first one is a partnership between Turning Point and ourselves. That would be with the Community Action Grant and SVMC. That's the outreach to overdose program. The medication safety program is going to be a partnership with the Collaborative and the Alliance for Community Transformations. They'll be partners in that. We're also partnering with United Counseling Services on some of these initiatives as well. As far as the opioid response team goes, the list of members is pretty extensive there, but it involves the hospital, big players like UCS, but also, smaller. We have sometimes in cases we have like individual community members with lived experience who take part in this. So it's a pretty extensive group that takes part in this, and so we're kind of looking forward to the upcoming grant year and hopefully hit the ground running.
That's great. Questions from the board? Any questions at this point? No?
I did want to, just really quickly, during the last meeting, I kind of reported on some of the statistics as far as Vermont goes, and I just want to say they continue to look good as far as the state of Vermont goes. Numbers continue to trend downward. 2021 saw the highest fatal OD rates in 10 years. I have preliminary data that gets me through May. Unfortunately, there is a little bit of lag in the data, but data up through May is looking good. It looks like it's trending in the correct way. Bennington is included in that as well. Bennington has seen a decrease. I tread very lightly on this because when we're talking about just Bennington County, it's a very small data set, so a couple of bad episodes could definitely trend the data in the other way, but through May, at this point, we are looking much better than we were looking at this time last year.
Jeannie, I have a question. Sure. So I'm assuming that depending on the person, you know, they're at a different point in their recovery, or maybe they're not in recovery. Everyone's situation is different. Their family situations, their work, whatever. So all these initiatives sound amazing. And I'm wondering if they're also flexible and you guys really find yourselves being creative and coming up with possibly a different solution for a particular situation. Do these programs have that level of flexibility?
They do. Especially the Community Action Grant, our partners there are completely understand that the entire dynamic could change halfway through the grant year, and so we are able to amend some of these things as we sort of move forward. So we do have that flexibility. We do keep a really close eye on outcomes as far as the grant is concerned. So if something looks like it may not be working, we have done this in the past. We've had to tweak a few things moving forward because we found out these just aren't working. But I guess long answer to a short question, yes, we do have that.
That's awesome.
Yes.
And I don't know that you need support for grants, but if you do, you have everybody's attention here, and so, you know,
oh,
if
absolutely.
you need to reach out, please do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, $125,000 it really isn't a ton of money. We do our absolute best with what we have, but yeah, I mean, the more obviously well-directed resources, the better, especially for us. So, but thank you.
And then for the recovery housing, I'll kick it over to Ralph in a second, but I wanted to provide a few updates from John Rogers. I want to be very clear that I don't work for Shires or V4. I'm just speaking some talking points. But the Women's House is under control by Shires. V4, the Vermont Foundation on Recovery, will be doing the programming. They have a secured 95% of their funding. And the $1.6 million project should be open hopefully by next summer. Then I'll kick it over to Ralph.
Hi, I'm Ralph Bennett. I work at the Turning Point Center here in Bennington. And before I get into recovery housing, I'd just like to say quickly about a lot of the really good work that is being done in this community, both by folks like Todd and Alex who get the grants and the funding and get us the money we need to do our work. But if we're all doing such a good job, why isn't it working? I'll tell you why. There isn't communication. Overdose calls are great if we're called to the scene. If we're not called, we don't see anybody. And I got to tell you, I would say we average maybe 1 to 2 overdoses a week that we're called to. There are many more. I work in the field. I'm on the street. I'm at People's Park. I'm at Midtown Motel. I'm at other places in this town where the overdoses happen, and we're not called as many times as we should be. And that's not to say that the police are doing a lousy job. The scenes that I've gone to when the police and the EMS are there, they're great. They're really great, and they work as a partner at that scene. But I know we could be making a bigger impact if we were called to more of the overdoses that are happening in this town. It is an epidemic in this town. It is terrible. I just got word from a colleague who works out on the West Coast that now there's rainbow fentanyl. These look like little Skittles. They're pressed pills that people are making in all different colors. You never guess who that targets? Children. I mean, that's coming our way. It's in DC now. I mean, we really have to be on top of this. We can't wait. We really have to be proactive. Recovery housing, I think, will be a big piece to it because it'll give people a place to go for a longer term than 2 weeks in a rehab. Our recovery house right now, we're in the Act 250 permit processing. I'm still waiting on this isn't about getting on the police, but I'm still waiting on the municipal impact form from the police about our Act 250. And then I also need the sewer and water acculation or whatever from the town. Those are the 2 pieces that they're waiting for now so that we can process that permit for the next step. I've been very disappointed in the process, and it's nothing anybody could do, it's just the process. But we started this 2.5 years ago and we don't have a house open yet. So I don't know. The good news is we see a lot of people and we help a lot of people. We do a lot more work now with families at Turning Point Center because they are really being impacted. You know, mothers, fathers, husbands, wives calling us and they don't know what to do, you know, with their loved ones. But we really need to take a look at what we're doing on the street level with people, getting our services to them more.
Well, I do know, I mean, you have the ear of a CPARB, and collaboration is something that they are clearly
So
very
I
interested
just
in, so.
want the picture that I see.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing. So Recovery House, can you, Ralph, can you, what's the, so once you have all your permits and such?
I've been ready with the program for 2 years. We're ready to go. What we'll have to do is construction once the permit process is done, which because of the zoning ordinance, we have to split the nursing home into 2 spots, 5 beds on each side. So Shires is handling that with their, I believe Naylor and Breen will be the contractors for that program, but as soon as we get through the paperwork process, then that'll start. I'm hoping by spring. I know they said summer, but I really want to get this thing open.
Okay.
Can I just ask a quick question?
Sure.
Can you, I'm sorry, what was?
Ralph? Yeah, you're not going to get to sit down.
Sorry. I'm wondering, you said that you're not getting nearly as many phone calls to go to an overdose scene as you should. Whose responsibility is it to call you?
The dispatcher. Well, the police who arrive on the scene call their dispatcher and then we're paged.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying that's really a CPARB.
Yeah, I didn't know if it was someone who happened upon the person. They could call, possibly. I don't know. I just didn't know. So it's the police. Okay.
Other questions? Yeah? All right. Yes. Ned? Okay. Okay. Is this a question for Alex, Todd, or Ralph?
Well, I know when you were here before, you talked about the hub and spoke system, and you said we were close to getting a hub, and I know Monica Hutt was down here from the governor's office. Did she bring any promises that this was going to be here?
I'm afraid I don't have any updates on the hub at this point. I can say that we are hopeful that there will be some additional spoke services here very soon.
Todd, can you come up?
Oh, sure.
Cat TV can't hear you.
I'm afraid I don't have any updates on the hub. Nothing has been formally announced at this point. Just another update, though, in terms of treatment services, we are hopeful that there will be some additional spoke services here in Bennington. We do have very good access to spoke services, but we could use a little bit more diversity in the treatment options that are out there, and so we are hopeful that we will have some additional places for people to go in the very near future. So I wish I could provide, a little bit more detail in terms of timeline and stuff, but especially on the hub, but without any kind of formal announcement, I kind of hesitate to say anything.
So will there be, there'll be a press splash when?
I would assume, once they're essentially ready to roll and kind of open their doors, I think it's my understanding that it's kind of moving at the state level. I guess the big piece is it's the prescribing of methadone, which I think is the tricky piece there. That's essentially what differentiates a spoke from a hub. And so I think it's kind of moving at it's at the state level. But I imagine once everything's been kind of cleared, we will hear like a formal announcement. So.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And just my other question on the housing part of it, is there going to be adequate staffing? I just saw this weekend there was a murder in Brattleboro at transitional housing, and I hope, that that's not going to repeat here.
Yeah, Ned, I think that was a different setup, but I think, Ralph, if you can speak to the staffing at both the houses, that would be great.
We are not transitional living. We don't work with DOC. It's not a halfway house. It's sober living for people that have already gone through treatment, either inpatient with Valley Vista or Serenity House, or maybe an out-of-state placement, or it's somebody that's already started a medication-assisted treatment, usually with Savita in this area. Yes.
Again, Clark Adams. You know, one of the things that struck me, you're mentioning the permitting process. I understand you're saying it's been in excess of 2 years to wade through the permitting process and you're still being hamstrung by it. At what level are these permits being generated or not? Is that a community? Is that a county, a state, federal level? Who is responsible for getting things done?
Well, I want to be clear first, the 2.5-year process, it started with HUD, getting the grant for the house, okay, moving through all that. Right now, we're waiting on local permitting.
Local as in different departments within the town of Bennington?
Yeah, well, I'm waiting for a letter from the police officer, the police chief, saying about the municipal impact form. And then I also have the allocation about sewer and water from the town.
So, again, maybe, hopefully these folks can answer. What's the working period here? You know, did you submit your request 6 months ago, 6 days ago? And if in fact it's been submitted in a reasonable manner, questions are kind of here. Why aren't you and your excellent organization getting a positive response from the various community organizations?
I don't know.
Okay. So
well, the process, I'm thinking the presentation was back in the winter, so the process didn't initiate until just a few months ago. So we are on the early end of this. Ralph, my understanding was you were saying it would be like 2.5 years from the time.
When we got our HUD grant and everything going on.
Yeah, so they've just gotten, it hasn't been 2.5 years. He's saying it'll be 2.5 years before they open, yes?
No, it's been 2.5 years since we started the process for the HUD money, for the grants.
We had the presentation.
A question for the town manager, possibly?
Yeah, I think either Dan or Shannon.
I can state categorically that all local permits have been granted and have for quite some time.
Okay.
I can state that all local permits all local land use and zoning permits have been granted and have been for quite some time.
Okay, so it's, again, it feels like maybe tomorrow, Ralph, it would make sense to call the town and figure out.
It's an issue with Shires, not with the town.
Okay, okay.
Oh, okay. So
okay.
That clears it up. I was under the distinct impression that
Thank you.
the holdup was in fact a governmental function or dysfunction.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you all.
Yeah, but I do want to reiterate that the process, we had the presentation on both recovery houses held over Zoom, yeah? When was that? So was that, Shannon, do you recall?
I don't remember the exact date of that Zoom presentation, but the application to go in for the funding only happened, like you said, sometime in the spring.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure why it took so long, 2.5 years of, maybe it was, I know that from our end, the town actually has to submit those applications for community development block grants, and we did that in partnership with Shires, but only very recently.
Okay. Yes, please.
Hi, Kelly Carroll, Bennington. I'm not really sure which one to address the question to, but I'd like the idea of the treatment navigator. Who exactly would be hiring the treatment? Would it be part of the hospital? Would it be part of UCS? And is it a one-time, because we have the grant and maybe in 6 months, then we're like, okay, somebody else has to pick it up? Or is it like a permanent, are we planning on it long-term?
That's a good question. So the treatment navigator is a new concept. So Todd and I have been meeting, as I feel like every day for the past couple of weeks. So to answer your question, it will be a UCS employee. So we'll be subcontracting with SVMC to hold those funds. There's 1 year left on the for the community action grant. Our hope is that there will be some additional funding coming down the line. We won't know that until the coming months, but it will be a UCS. Yep.
Great. Any other questions? Yes, please.
Just what about all this opioid settlement money I read about in the papers? Is any of that coming this way?
So I sit on the statewide Substance Misuse Prevention Oversight Advisory Council, and actually Dr. Levine did provide an update. What I can say is that they had met, I believe, last week or 2 weeks ago. It was just the first meeting, and so they are having those conversations, but that is as far as those are the updates that were provided by Dr. Levine. So more to come. Monies are trickling in, but I can't speak on when those will be coming to the local municipalities.
All good questions. Any other questions?
Would you like me to add anything on the monies issue?
Yes, please add.
We have been notified by the state of Vermont and by the opioid distribution organization that certain funds will flow to Bennington. Unfortunately, they're going to be flowing to us over a period of anywhere from 5 to 15 years. So when you read about these large settlements, please understand that that money isn't going to come to us all in one lump sum. It's going to come to us over time. The first notice we received, we're going to get about $8,000 out of the first settlement for the state of Vermont, because every town in Vermont got something based on their population. So you can imagine a $2 million settlement or a $4 million settlement doesn't go very far at the local level. But that's what we're going to be seeing. It's going to take a long time for these money to be distributed because these corporations have agreed to payouts, but they're over time.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, any other questions, comments? No? Well, thank you three very much for coming and updating us. This was very helpful. And Alex, I'm understanding that you're going to be back at our next meeting to talk about UCS?
September 12th.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. All right. All right, thank you. All right, so let's move on to implementing the town vision. We have two things. First, in our packet was some information on IDEAL Vermont, which stands for Inclusion, Diversity, Equity, Action, and Leadership Vermont. Surprisingly, in the last month, the town of Bennington has received 2 invitations to join statewide programs that would further our work on equity and inclusion. And both of the programs are statewide, both involve working with other municipalities, and both involve working with the organization Abundant Sun, which is a very thoughtful statewide organization that works on organizational justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion issues. And so Stuart and I did reach back out and say, there are 2 programs, we'll be invited to be in both, or to apply to both. How do they differ? And the 2 programs, one is the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, has a welcoming and engaging communities cohort, and so we were invited to be one of the 15 municipalities that participates in that. And then the other is the IDEAL Vermont Initiative, which actually comes out of Susanna Davis's Office of Racial Equity for the state. So we did do some research, and what appears, it appears that the IDEAL Vermont program is probably better suited to us. It's targeting municipalities that have already been thinking about inclusion and diversity and have taken some steps and have some things in place. I did reach out to the other members of the community policing group, Bruce and Jean, so that they could look at all the materials. And so the Stu and Bruce and Jean and I sort of looked at all those materials and listened to what Ted Brady and Susanna had to say about the programs. And so we would like to recommend that this board give us the go-ahead to pursue being part of the IDEAL Vermont program.
Right. Mm-hmm.
What I've learned from Susanna is that the IDEAL Vermont program would involve a number of municipalities. It's unclear how many, but we would meet monthly in different locations, so it sounds like there are a lot of field trips and site visits involved. They would like 2 to 3 members of town government and staff, so they're looking for town staff, senior staff, and select board to take part. And so, you know, it seems like it would be useful. There are resources, both financial and programmatic, that they provide to municipalities. So, you know, it seemed like it would probably be a better fit for us. The communities we would be working with are also communities that have done some level of thinking and moving in the direction of our vision statement, in fact. So I don't know if we need a motion or just people's thoughts. Do you want a motion?
I would like us to have a motion.
All right. So I think the motion would be to pursue.
Yeah, basically to authorize the chair and the town manager to pursue our enrollment in the Ideal Vermont program. Second.
Any discussion?
Yes.
Yes.
I wanted to ask the town manager and staff if they feel they have the bandwidth to do this at this time.
Pardon me?
If you feel that the town staff has bandwidth to attend the meetings at this time? I think it's a good idea. I just don't want to overtax staff.
Thank you, Sarah. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't feel I have the bandwidth to attend another meeting.
We understand that if we do get involved in either one of these operations, that it's going to involve additional staff time. We are willing, I haven't even talked this over with what staff we might send or what staff might participate, but we would be willing to make the commitment to make these meetings and make this work.
Okay.
Good.
Good question. Good question. Any other questions?
Jeannie?
Yes.
I'm assuming that when you're speaking of 2 to 3 people, if people wanted to do it, it would be to participate in the whole program, not just jump in and out of the meetings, but it would be a commitment. Okay.
It would be people to commit to the year-long program. Yes. And so there is, I did sign up for a webinar that actually is at the same time where it overlaps with the CPARP meeting, but I did sign up to get more information.
Good.
On that. Any more discussion? Questions, concerns? No? All right, then all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Please say no. Any abstentions? All right, thank you. We'll pursue it. All right, and then the other, with the actual correct date, is the next CPARP training is this coming Thursday, August 25th, from 5 to 8 in this room. It will be recorded. It is Merrill Bent, who is our town council, will be presenting on open meeting law and open records law. And this is part of that overall training for the CPARP. But everyone is invited to attend. Anything else under town vision? No? Okay. All right, then we move on to manager's report.
All right, I have one action item that was not included in my manager's report, and Matt Harrington gave a wonderful introduction to it and indicated that we are going to need to close a couple of streets for the event. The first is Depot Street. The second is Washington Avenue. Depot Street is proposed to sort of a flowing closing, allowing the businesses that exist there to do their business and be closed for the day before the street is entirely closed, very similar to what I think we experienced in one of the beer fests that we had in that location. So that is the first request. The second is Washington Avenue from Maine to Franklin Lane, very similar. Allow the businesses to do, such as the bank that is in the middle of the block, to do their thing, and then the street would be entirely closed. Really, it's to open it up more for pedestrian traffic and pedestrian activity than anything else. There won't be any events taking place within those streets. But that's a street closing request that I'm asking the board to approve.
Great.
So moved.
Any discussion? No? All right. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right. Thank you.
Garlic Town thanks you as well. Now to the meat of the manager's report, such as it is. Now I seem to have misplaced it. Isn't that interesting? I have thoroughly lost my manager's report.
2 or more hours.
It's been that kind of a day, actually. Good news, our flood insurance rating study has been completed this year, and that is an analysis of the planning and construction efforts that the town has undertaken to control flooding within the community. It has an impact on your flood insurance rates if you live in a flood-prone zone. Our rating remains at a CRS 9, which means that people will be able to receive a 5% reduction in their flood insurance costs. And those folks, you know who you are, but that is thanks in the effort to our planning department essentially, and their work with our engineers, specifically with regard to the flood-prone areas around the Willow River and the Roaring Branch. Jeannie asked if we had a specific date for a ribbon cutting for Willow Park. We do not at this time, although now we are projecting in early September, and hopefully we'll be able to time that so that it follows after a select board meeting, so we'll be able to give it sufficient notice. So stay tuned for our first meeting in September. We may look to plan around that. Work, I'm told, is going very well. Paul Dansborough is overseeing the work. We've had some fits and stops with personnel being pulled off of one job and having to go to another, but I think they're back in force now and on the site, and things are coming along very well at the new Willow Park playground area. And this is really just a comment. Those of you who drive around town have seen the proliferation of election signs. And we generally discourage the placement of those signs in public rights of way and on public properties. Generally, folks are supposed to ask private property owners if they would place a sign in their yard. This year, specifically the area around the intersection of Benmont Avenue and Main Street, we have seen a tremendous number of signs, duplicates, triplicates, and it looks, frankly, horrible. So we are going to be moving now that the primary is done and we know who the candidates are. We're going to be moving to those organizations that have placed signs for those who are no longer involved in the running to have those signs removed. And we're going to be working with those folks who are running for office to see if they can relocate the signs to private property locations. We don't give permission for folks to place signs on our property because we are a municipality, we are neutral, and I don't want people to get the idea that somehow Bennington encourages that kind of signage on our properties. So that's Pet Peeve of the Week award.
Yep. Stu, can I ask a question just on that issue? Some municipalities in Vermont do have ordinances regarding even the placement of political signs and other signs on municipal rights of way. Is that an advisable, I mean, that's what the Secretary of State's website suggests even now. I went on today just to see, and that's exactly what they suggest.
I haven't looked at our sign ordinance.
I don't think there's anything in our sign ordinance that would cover this. I looked at that too as well over the weekend. It would be my suggestion that in order for us to have teeth in our capacity to regulate political signage, we ought to, it would be a relatively easy draft, and the simpler the draft, the better. There is a suggestion on the Secretary of State's website that actually gives us some good food for thought. So I would encourage the staff, and if the staff doesn't want to do it, I'll be glad to help.
Well, I think Dan has been our guy on that. Is there, what are people's thoughts? It feels like a good idea to me.
We'll have a proposal before you within the next month.
Yeah? Okay.
Sure.
That would be great.
All right, so we'll put it on next meeting's agenda or the second meeting?
No, it might be the meeting after, given what we're working on, but nonetheless, remember, select board ordinances have a 60-day appeal period where they cannot take effect, so it's not going to impact really this eletion cycle.
Yeah, but we have them frequently. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That would be good. And just for folks out there, I would not be talking about private property. That's
a different story altogether.
That's not really our bailiwick, but our town right-of-way is. Thanks.
Great.
And then the last thing is, I talked the last time about the Benmont Avenue County Street sewer. That is out to bid. Bids will be opened this Thursday. So we'll get a feel for what the cost of this project is going to be. We'll have to do an analysis of that cost at the time, and then I'll let you know if in fact we're able to move forward. Preliminary estimate says we can by using some of the fund balance in the sewer fund, but we have to see what those prices are. And I understand there are two bidders that are both very professional, very well positioned to do the project, and they appear to be the only two that are moving forward in the process, which is good news for us. And that's all I have.
Great. All right. Upcoming agendas. So the only thing that I'm aware of is that United Counseling Services will be coming back to talk about the services that they provide to the community, particularly around mental health services and drug misuse services. Anything else that we know of? I'm not aware of anything. Yeah?
It's more of a question, and we've mentioned it several times, and I think it may have gotten mentioned tonight, I'm not sure. The Ben High project, and I'm assuming other ARPA projects, do we have, I know we've always talked about something in September, but do we have something more specific in mind than that, or we're not there yet?
That was going to be a special meeting, but
okay, the special meeting later in September.
Yeah.
And just so that I'm clear, and maybe the community is clear, we would be seeing before that special meeting, data would be coming out. You think? Is that what you have in mind, Dan?
So yeah, we would have all the information that we would want the public and the board to consider as far as making a decision regarding proceeding or not. Prior to that meeting, I envision, although I'm still working with the architect and with Joan and Shannon, how we might set it up, but I'm envisioning that we would have a meeting in this room with boards, and we'd have the architect here and the engineer here, and folks could ask questions and in a more relaxed atmosphere than a formal meeting, and then follow it with perhaps more formal presentation. But that's our vision, is try to get folks in so they could be comfortable looking at the plans, asking questions outside of a formal meeting, and then also we'd have the formal meeting too for folks that want to participate in that, and for you folks to make, ask your questions at a formal meeting. Obviously, we wouldn't expect a decision at that meeting, but that meeting would be to get the information to you so that you'd have what we hope the necessary tools to make the decision on whether or not to proceed.
And we would want at least a 10-day warning period before we did it. So it does feel like by mid-September
Yeah, I'd say late September. We hope to have so the big thing we're waiting on, and it all comes down to this, right, is the cost estimate. How much is it going to cost? We have preliminary estimates, but those don't really mean anything. They're just, orders of magnitude. So once we get the cost estimate nailed down, that's when we're at a point where once we get the cost estimate nailed down, we will have the information necessary and for you folks to review and for the public to review, so that everyone can make an informed decision. We'll have completed our due diligence on the project, and be able to have information for you folks.
Hang on just a sec. Dan, thank you. That's the kind of helpful information that I think it's good for the public to hear and good for us to hear. Thank you.
So lots of things still moving, but hopefully by mid-September, we'll have everything nailed down to where you folks can make a decision.
Dan, wait, I don't know if James.
Yeah, I think it would be really fantastic and actually necessary to have an option where people could tour the building, as long as it's safe, obviously, because visualizing it for some people is really, really difficult. So if we could do another walkthrough where people could physically see this, be in the space.
Yeah, I think we could do a limited tour. I mean, there are parts of the building that I wouldn't want to bring the public through.
Right, actually, yeah, obviously needs
just
to be
because
safe.
it's not, it may not be unsafe, but it's just not, it's not savory. How about that? Yeah. It's an abandoned building for a couple decades. But there are portions of the building that are in good shape, and we could bring people through, and certainly maybe we could have, instead of having the meeting here, we could have it at the auditorium at Ben High. So all things to think about, and we want folks to see be able to clearly see the vision.
Exactly, that's what I was going to say. It might be helpful if the architect was there.
Yep, we've already spoken to the architect.
Visualize, because it's
he will be available to answer questions and also to help with the presentation to the public and to the board. So we fully expect to have our consultants with us so that we can give a full picture, and
great.
They can answer questions that I know I won't be able to.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, and the BBD update, is that on the next agenda or following?
No, because they usually, they've been coming quarterly, so I think that's going to be, I think that's a little further out. We'll have to do math on that.
For the PD to come back?
Yeah, I'm thinking it's probably October. It's probably early October.
Yeah, potentially. I don't remember.
Okay,
I have
all
to
right.
do that one. Yeah.
Okay, so yes, soon, but not next week.
I think October is the 3rd.
Okay. Good. I'm glad you're paying attention. Okay, so other business then. Gary, anything?
Nothing.
I'm just going to wish my husband a happy anniversary.
Oh, no, tonight?
Yes.
Oh, thank you for being here.
No, this is weekend, but we were working.
Okay.
You were working together. Oh, that's right. That's true. I have nothing.
All right. Okay, so we have need of an executive session to discuss real estate. We are not intending to make any decision coming out of that. So I would like a motion to go into executive session.
So moved.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. The ayes have it.
Cat TV is celebrating 30 years of community media. Help support Cat TV's next 30 years by becoming a member today. Your membership will help us continue covering meaningful, local content. Thank you for supporting your local community media station.